I don't know if
Hello.
Catherine's coming. She didn't, hasn't checked in. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Inga. Hi, Sam.
Hey. Well, if if we haven't heard from her, it's unlikely she'll join. If she joins, it'll be momentarily. So we should, get done what we can get done here. And if heaven forbid we have to end a meeting early, that could be fine. But if there are things we need to talk about, let's talk about them.
Yeah, I haven't gotten the the latest draft of land use document from Jeff Condit yet, so I don't know where that is. He's not on this meeting either.
So did we
Uh,
send did we send the latest version that Catherine and Ed and I worked on that got sent off to Jeff?
Yes, I reformatted it and then sent it to him to work on. He said he was going to try and get it done Friday, which I guess they weren't able to meet that deadline.
So I talked to him yesterday to check in on that, and apparently it's well on the way. And there was a couple other documents, so I may be confusing which one the following sentence refers to, but it was basically he was sending it off to Holly in Phoenix to get her blessing, and then it would be sent on to us. I did see one document came in for the legal subcommittee that had to do with the topic of what other information can the planning official ask for as a result of an application. So that was one of the three documents we talked about. And so hopefully I'll be able to call them later today or tomorrow and figure out what is the legitimate ETA on their response. And then well, go ahead, Inga. I want you to drive. It's your meeting, so.
Well, we were going to talk about the memorandum of understanding. That was the first item, that landfill MOU, and then the CUP introductory language very briefly, which we have a meeting for on Wednesday, so we might not even need to talk about that now. And then the rough draft that you sent out, and the format of that's going to take.
Okay.
So the MOU, do you want to talk about that or just hold on to it? I mean, it's just out there. It's really more for the county. Mark, where you got that email, correct, from Sam with the MOU attachment?
About the 2002 MOU?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's really for the county. I mean, the county's saying that they found them in compliance. So it's really, I mean, it's the county's history. Obviously, other people don't have to agree with that. So.
Well, make sure there is a section in the legal report. And so reach over here. I try to put together the legal report yesterday afternoon, and I don't know how. Didn't Vance send us something at the end of last week, and I forwarded it on to you, Mark, or am I again missing things?
No, he did.
Yeah.
That's what Inga was referring to.
And so I guess it's it would be the CUP folks, if you wanted to respond to that or engage in a conversation with the legal folks about that, or that you agree with it or not disagree with it, whatever the case may be. But I think the next step is to tee up what are the next steps, if any, with regard to that initial response from Vance.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit odd to have this conversation with me. just by myself versus
Well,
I
will
don't know. I don't know if Catherine's had a chance to look at that yet, or what, you know. Obviously Ed's out of town, so he's not going to have a chance to look at it.
Well, I was hoping to have it just with you, Mark, to see if you disagreed with yourself at any point during the conversation, or if you could get an internal consensus on it.
I have an internal consensus, but
Good.
it's internal.
Yeah, good. Well, I guess to the extent then, I guess your homework buddy is, you know, try to engage with Catherine and see what she has to say on that. And because if we need to talk about it on whatever it is, Wednesday, or whenever all the divergent scheduling ducks lined up, then that would be a good time to talk about it.
Did she accept the Wednesday meeting?
I haven't checked as of today to see. Let me look. I can probably tell pretty quickly.
Looks like
Oh,
there's
hold on. She
Catherine
says
now.
she can't get in. Hold on.
She's here now, though.
Oh,
Did she?
okay.
Okay, yeah. I just
got
saw
it
our
all.
email. She said she couldn't get in.
Thank you, everybody. I even had looked at that agenda sheet, but for whatever reason, I was thinking I had to go back to that 12/7 email. So thank you.
Great, welcome. So we just agreed that you would rewrite the entire CUP summary document by 10:30 tomorrow morning.
Excellent. That's that voluntold space, right?
Yes. Yeah. So what we're talking about is this this MOU that came out, and I sent on the draft response from the county on the MOU, and I was suggesting that obviously Ed's, God knows where, in Antarctica or something, and so it really is a function of when you and Mark will have time to read it and you know, either agree, disagree, or respond. And my half-formed thought was, you know, we already have this hard-fought attempt to finally get a meeting on Wednesday of the joint committees. And in addition to the introductory language, if you guys have any thoughts on that, I would like to see if we can use both those those two topics at that meeting.
So Sam, we haven't seen any revised language yet on the introductory paragraphs? I haven't seen anything that I know of.
The only thing that you are going to receive sometime this evening is Jenny Lucker did a third version. So she tried to take, you know, your team's version, legal team's version, and put together a third version to look at. She's trying to take money out of my mediation gig here. And that's a joke, since this is being recorded and other people don't know what Imparati attempts at humor look like. And so that's going out to you.
Okay, so she is preparing yet the 7th or 8th draft of the introductory statement.
The 14th or 15th.
Okay,
Mark.
all right, yeah. Yeah, okay, all right. Well, I'll look forward to seeing that.
Right. Make a reminder note. I had it on another list, but all right. So that's I guess those are those first two topics, Inga. Landfill MOU and CUP introductory language.
So in the landfill MOU, we're referring to the 2002 document,
Correct.
and you're asking Catherine and I to review it and possibly huddle up and try to figure out what our thoughts are about it.
Vis-a-vis Vance's memo, which you should also have gotten from me.
Right. Yeah. And that came out a couple days ago. That came out last week, like Thursday or
Yeah,
something. I
late
think.
last week sometime.
Yeah. Catherine, did you get that?
I have read several documents. I have to go back and see which one is actually that memo as it relates to that MOU. So I'm just gonna say not 100% confident until I go look at all of the titles of the docs.
Yeah, it would have come from Sam. Sam would have
Okay,
forwarded
I think,
it to us.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, I got it and just turned it around so I could get it
Right.
to you as soon as possible. I didn't
Yeah,
do any
I think so.
analysis.
I do have some thoughts about that. I have some thoughts about that. Oops, sorry. I bumped the video. And so if the goal is to have some sort of review and comments provided, I guess I was looking to get some feedback probably first before I was to put anything necessarily in writing. Is that not the approach you are suggesting, Sam?
No, it is. I'm suggesting you and Mark talk offline
Okay,
and get back to us, if possible tomorrow, so that we can talk about it on Wednesday. Or, Wednesday morning, so we can talk about it then. Because the meeting is at 1, so
right.
that would be the goal. At least my goal, but
And that, just to be sure, so that Wednesday time slot is a challenge time slot for me. I just want to double check. We're bringing the legal team and this group. So our subcommittee, is it specifically and only we're going to be working on that MOU, or would we also be looking at the intro?
the intro, the presenting topic that I started trying to get this meeting, 2 weeks ago, was the intro paragraph.
Okay,
Then this cropped up
okay.
in the last week sometime.
And just to be clear, our work is, at the end of the day, is a reflection of our perspectives. If we can't come to a consensus on the intro document, which seems to be being bounced back and forth quite a bit, and I'm not sure that I feel like the reasoning why the pushback is meriting that much effort. If we cannot come to a consensus, can we include perspectives from both subcommittees individually? Is that the plan?
Well, I hadn't gotten to that plan yet. So I am the Energizer bunny of resolution. I keep going and going and going and think that it's always possible to get agreement. We are getting to the final, glide path to the runway here and running
Right.
out of runway. And so it may well be that each subcommittee will have its own version of the introductory paragraph, but ultimately the piece that's going to be happening in February and March is the whole work group ultimately opines. Do they like column A or column B, or do they, want to come up with, see if they can reach an agreement here?
Sure. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
And two, I guess that question, so secondarily on that MOU, I see it as an independent document that has some bearing on this process, but it also does not have the authority that might alter or change conditions of approval, which are a different authority than ordinances and DEQ permits, potentially. And also near as I can tell, everywhere I've searched and looked just to reinforce what I thought I understood about MOUs is that it is in fact not a legally binding document, whereas conditions of approval are expected and assumed to be, as is land use decisions. So if again, we have different perspectives on that MOU, is that something too that we will be going forward with the committees, the subcommittees to the whole work group? Okay.
Yeah. And just for what it's worth, because I obviously can't give anyone legal advice. And even if I could, I'm not the right person to ask these kinds of questions. So I never practiced in this area of the law. My own exposure is listening to my ex-wife complain about land use issues, some 25 years ago. So it really boils down to this. I think the legal subcommittee has reached a consensus that it is not, that MOU is not a land use decision. I also think they've reached an agreement that that MOU is in fact a contract. It is an agreement between the signatories, then Valley Landfill and Benton County, as to the state of things as of the magic date it was signed. Now, how that, to what extent that creates waiver issues or concession issues or evidentiary issues, I don't know that folks have gotten to that. At least I didn't necessarily pick all that up as to what that means.
Okay, and then just a question in that case, if I may.
Please.
So again, yes, a memorandum of understanding I would classify as an agreement, but they're very specific in the language that they use about what they are agreeing to and referencing. Is there precedent that you're aware in a land use process that an MOU would actually supersede a land use decision and conditions of approval that have moved forward to the point of this 2000 document? That is where the question is right now. Is there precedent of such a thing? I'm not aware of it, which is why I asked.
I don't know. And if that's one of the questions that you would like to tee up for the legal subcommittee, fine. And then Jenny Lucker participated in her first legal subcommittee meeting last week. And she did, in my view, and just one person's opinion, a pretty good job of saying to everybody when she thought they were right and when she thought they were wrong. And you eventually will see she changed a bunch of documents and did some fine tuning. So she would be willing to jump in and give her independent view, just like she did in the introductory language
Sure.
section.
And do we have access to her to ask any questions, or does that all need to be in that meeting space? It seems like maybe
it doesn't have to be in the meeting space, but it has to go through email first to tee it up. And I think it's best to do it either. In other words, I don't think personal calls should work for many reasons, not the least of which is budget, but mostly transparency.
Yep.
And we'll send emails back and forth and everyone can see what's going on.
So the record is there. That's helpful. Thank you.
All right, Ingo, what's next on our hit list for today?
To talk about your rough draft report and the formatting of that.
Okay.
That's my work for tomorrow by 10 a.m., right?
Yeah.
10:30.
So let me
10:30.
10:30. Yeah.
Yeah, I gave you plenty of time. All right, let me share my screen here so I can show
So
you.
question, Inga, is the reformatted document, is that on our subcommittee page?
No, I didn't share it because I was waiting for Jeff to finish his part.
I see. Okay. All right. So you reformatted it and sent it off to Jeff. And now we're waiting for Jeff to add his comments, questions, whatever to it?
Yeah, I mean, I just reformatted. I didn't include any new comments from staff because I really didn't have anything new to share.
Well, why don't you go ahead and share it with everyone? Just so they can,
Electronically, you're
Yeah.
not saying bringing it up now, but you're
No,
asking
no.
Inga to send it to us?
Yes,
Okay,
just so you can
Okay.
flip through it and get comfortable with the new format. I think it's much
Yeah.
improved formatting wise, and a good job on, just making it look like what a report tends to look like, and then you can check that. Yeah, I just now had a flash. What the other thing he told me yesterday about this was he had gone through the drafts as they had been going along the way, and had them all track changed and everything. And then with the new reformatted draft, his assistant couldn't figure out how to just merge those two documents without it being too messy. So they're going through and copying and pasting, a comment, on whatever section in. And so it's really at a mechanical stage. So it should be pretty soon, like in a day or two, that you'll get all that. But might as well have the new and improved formatting version now.
And just so Sam, just to be clear, those track changes are not happening with the work that we have done. We're just looking at, when you talk about track changes to that document, what are you referencing?
The document, Jeff Condit is going to take what I'll call the Inga draft from Friday and track change that. So as I understand it, the Inga document is 100% your verbiage, just stylistically, margins this and paragraphs that, and same font and what have you. So everything you then see from Condit is going to be in track changes, knowing that's what he's raising. So you don't have to go back and look for fidelity that he switched something and not track changes.
Sure.
I will beat him about the head and shoulders if he tries that. All
And
right.
Inga, you
Go
kept
ahead,
it
Inga.
under
All right.
300 pages, right? You kept it under 300 pages at the end, just checking, okay.
I actually managed to combine two of your tables into one, so I think I actually managed to reduce it by a few pages.
By 1 or 2 pages.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That makes it so much more readable now that they only need 3 days to read it now. There's just 3 days and 10 minutes. All right. So the next part is this overall report. So here's the dance that I am attempting to orchestrate. Each subcommittee has a document that looks like yours in various stages of evolution. And you will continue to work on that document as is, and land the plane on as many issues as humanly possible. That document then will either be in a separate section of the overall work group report, and each subcommittee will have a section that well, first let me go back and give you where it is the first time. So the first section of my draft report that I sent out looks like this, as you will see when you have time to read it. It says here, there's this subcommittee, here's your link. Here, that's legal. Let me get to CUP, sorry. So here is CUP. Here's the web link. Here was your charge. Here were your members. Here is that master document of, we met here, our agenda was here, we discussed this, met then, discussed this, what have you. That's been where Inga's putting, if you will, the notes of the meeting for each time. So that orients people to say, hey, we had all these subcommittees. Then for each of the charges, then each of the scopes, we go down to this section, which is a new section of the overall work groups report that says key work group findings and recommendations. And there's going to be a history of Coffin Butte that the subcommittee E is working on and will be plugged and played here or there. Then your section, your subcommittee section. So my theory is, and please give me reality therapy, this is not consistent with what you think would work and suggestions for improvement, is you would all write an introductory paragraph. Oh, wait, you'll try to write an introductory paragraph that does the scope, and that will go there. And anything else you want to say that's like how to read this document, you would, write that and orient the reader to this section. Then the ask is, what are the key findings that came out of your work? So restated, there's no one has an expectation that anyone but a few folk are going to dive in and read every single letter of every single word on every single page of any of these subcommittee reports. So what can we give the reader that says the CUP subcommittee's major work, can be found here, as it says on the bottom of the screen. However, our key findings were 1 through 10, 1 through 30, 1 through 40, whatever they are, you would put your key findings and number them. And same with any key recommendations that you would number them. And then any additional information you want. So the goal is, in the actual body of the full work group report, we have 5 or 10 pages per subcommittee that rolls up the body of the work. Each of these key findings and recommendations and additional information, we will hyperlink back to the body of your subcommittee report. So a finding, key finding 3 is X, and someone says, oh, I want to know more about that, or that surprised me, I disagree. They can hit on the hyperlink and go to page 32 of your subcommittee report for ease of access. And the other method to my madness is when I'm doing the final polling of the work group and doing our community survey on an input to you on the findings and recommendations, it's going to be set up in SurveyMonkey, and it may look something like this. We have 5 subcommittees. Each subcommittee handled the following topics. For each subcommittee, here is and I'll use section A, land, this one here, landfill size. What was your introduction? There are key findings 1 through 32. For each of those key findings 1 through 32, please vote 1, 2, or 3 as to whether or not you agree with that particular finding. And same with key recommendations. And then we can start to roll up with the magic of Excel, find out which of the the 150 findings and 50 key recommendations the work group comes up with, which there's emerging consensus on, which are hopeless and which maybe I can try to mediate, if we're close to getting a consensus, but not. But it's a mechanism to really hone in on what's most important, because I can't imagine the whole work group then track changing your report from this subcommittee and saying, I want to talk about page 37, line 12, sentence B. So I'll pause there and see if any of that made sense, or is it nonsense?
Well, so I was actually planning on doing track changes potentially for the entire document. I just want to know that at the end, that whole summary, right? No,
you can if you want.
Not really.
Oh,
but
okay.
I do want to ask this question. In reviewing this, there's an extensive amount of documentation expected. How much lead time will we have from the time that we are given the final copy till we are being asked to make a consensus opinion, if you will. And what happens if we have committee members? There are some pretty dedicated folks that have been involved in this process who are looking to that beyond the summary depth level, and we do have issues past that, 5 to 10 page summary for each subcommittee. What's the plans for that? Or is there information you can provide me on those two questions?
So thinking out loud, I've been waiting to find, to this week really to get to really see what all this looks like and feels like to make any final. But if Yahweh came down and said I had to make a decision in the moment, I would do this procedure that I just said. I'll call that the high level polling or voting. I would then give the work group members as individuals an opportunity to track change the whole damn thing. And God loved them. And then their work, so say someone else just piled on this section B or past land use applications, and 5 people just track change the hell out of it. I would have Millie merge those 5 people's track changes into one document, the best we can, given the constraints of that feature in Word. Send it to your subcommittee and say, have at it. At the end of the day, then, the final draft will go out and people will have time to, in addition to the formal polling, which will take place at the last meeting, there'll be some preliminary polling before then, to write a member statement where you can say anything you want about anything in the entire report. I'll be requesting a specific format so we can put every work group member's comments about section B land use in one section, for ease of review, but everyone will have carte blanche. And all that will be part of the work group report.
That's helpful. I'll just comment. I wasn't intending to be, and hopefully didn't come across to be challenging in this space. I appreciate what you're putting together. Just trying to understand the process of what you're expecting from this point as we move forward. So thanks.
And this would be a good thing to also orient you all on. So on the website, but also in the work group report here, this is the final work plan. It's the same work plan that I briefly discussed at our last meeting on December 20th. And so, here we are today. The Survey Monkey went out, and here we are today, and we're dealing with subcommittee stuff. I'm going to get all the Survey Monkey responses, I think it is tomorrow, as you said, and roll them all out and send them out. And then I'm going to compile what I'm calling draft 2. So in a perfect world, I was hoping to get that out to people on Thursday so they'd have a week to read it before our next work group meeting. Given where the other subcommittees are at, it's not likely to happen. I will be lucky. I will be lucky if I get it out on the 17th, which gives very, very little time for people to do anything with it. But on the January 19th work group meeting 7, you will be doing a presentation to the work group in the 45-minute time frame where you can tee up the key issues and get work group feedback. So for instance, let's assume divine intervention is not available to us on the 11th or whenever that is. And you want to tee up those 3 introductory paragraphs or the 2 introductory paragraphs and get some feedback, you can do so. Okay. Same if there's anything about the MOU, you can do so. So I'm hoping to start dealing with the points that are still in dispute or there's tension surrounding them and get them talked out then. Then soon after that meeting, staff and I will work together and compile draft 3 of the report. And we're going to send it out to the work group, SWAC and DSAC on January 24th. And they've got like 2 weeks to give us feedback, SWAC, DSAC, Planning Commission feedback. Meanwhile, in that period of time, the subcommittees are going to continue to work on and fine tune and see what we can get consensus on. Ultimately, then I get SWAC and the Planning Commission's feedback and roll it up and give it to you guys, incorporate it into what's going to be draft. I'll facilitate draft 4 here in this period of time. Quick turnaround, give it to you in early February, and then here we go again. So it is a very aggressive schedule to meet this March 24th deadline. And so you will have, after the last meeting on the 16th, you guys would have to the 21st to submit your member statements that go into the full report and off to the board.
And Sam, you, last week at our meeting, you indicated that I would be drafting the key findings and recommendations, part of it for our group. This group doesn't meet again until next Wednesday, right before the work group meeting. So I'm guessing I'll be emailing everyone and hoping to get feedback. What my plan is to take the information you've already supplied in your draft, where you put the monitoring and compliance enforcement issues, and then you have general notes. Take that information, and that might actually change the format of this document a little bit if I move that information up to what Sam needs for his draft, and then take whatever comes out of Jeff's new rewrite, and then also and include those in key findings and the recommendations. So I guess I'm just saying next Wednesday is probably when we'll just need to devote to looking at those 2 sections of what I've written.
Well, and so that's a challenge for obvious reasons. Not blaming anyone. I really guess I would really hope that there is something in key findings and key recommendations that is taking what you all, the subcommittee, has written and put forth there and plaster. And this document is going to have plastered all over it. Work in progress. Hasn't been viewed, written by staff in this particular case, hasn't been reviewed by the subcommittee yet, what have you. But we do need something to give people, a sense of kind of what it looks and feels like. And especially those where we need to tee up the key things like the introductory language and the MOU. That that could come in under that other information category or anywhere you want to put it. But I do need something so I can send out Monday evening.
So
Yeah,
Sam,
like sorry.
no,
Catherine,
go ahead, Inga. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I can take what Catherine and Mark and Ed already gave me, and just move it over and then maybe add some more of my other things. I know you guys I don't think you got through a full complete review. I know you worked a lot of hours and many days on this, but I think there were still some items that were up in the air.
I think we did get through to the end.
I think we
Um,
did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
our
that's good
last
then.
push, was to get through to the last page.
Oh,
And so
good.
we
So
we
I'll
did do that.
So I can just take what you've gotten on here and then move it over to this draft that Sam's
Well,
putting together.
I want to make sure I understand what you think, what you mean by moving over, because it is not a copy and paste exercise, to be clear.
Well, they've done their observations and recommendations. So they have an overall considerations, a monitoring and compliance enforcement issues, and then some general notes of other issues. So I'm not sure if what I'll be giving you is the summary of those, and then keep the full write-up in this land use document, or
So you're talking about the first part of our document that identified, we went through many different names for loose ends or things,
yes,
lessons learned or whatever. You're talking about that section of it?
yes, yeah.
And that's fine. That's fine. But I guess I want to get clarity on it for my own understanding is I recall this is like a 95-page document or something.
150, but who's counting?
Yeah, apparently not me. So 150-page document, and for each of the major land use actions, there's a bunch of information, right? I am hoping that for each of those land use things, there is thinking out loud, like 5 sentences that says, the name of decision, the date, and what have you, and then just a few findings or conclusions or what have you. It's like a big rolled up executive summary, but a more detailed executive summary of your 150 pages. That's what I'm looking for.
It's not in that format at the moment, or at least it wasn't in that format when it last went to Inga from the subcommittee.
Right. So let's figure out what format, and maybe Inga, if you have it handy, you could pull one up and let's just actually use. I think you're right. I mean, all the lessons learned and all that stuff, I think is going to be pretty easy to copy and paste over. It's the detailed analysis of each and every land use.
So it would not be difficult to take the document as we have it with the context that's been provided for the casual observer, not the deep diver, but somebody that wants a little bit more, right? It would not be difficult to list, say, PC 8307, condition of approval number 1. I don't know how you want to summarize those conditions, of course, are their own little paragraphs, but how to summarize it, say that it's noise compliance. It would not be hard to identify like that type of condition and say, committee is of a consensus that we agree that this is in compliance, for example. And I'm by no means stating that as a fact on any given, but
Totally get it. Totally get it.
is that what we're, so a kind of a bullet point or numbered list for each land use application. There should be able to, it should not be difficult to extract the consensus or not. There were a few that we just agreed to disagree of this subcommittee for each of those things. So whether is that what you're looking for?
Yep.
Okay. I think that content is all there, wouldn't you say, Mark? I mean, at the end, we made sure that we had a consensus or a differing of consensus opinion for each condition, for each individual application, did we not?
Yeah, we tried to do that. There were some that we basically said we didn't have any opinion because for one reason or another, and mostly it was because, I don't want to put this flippantly, but we didn't really care. I mean, whether or not the building submittals for the building that was associated with the, the methane burner, whether they submitted the plans for that we didn't have an opinion on some things as an example like that. But for all the substantive ones, we had a thorough discussion and expressed our opinions, sometimes in agreement, sometimes not.
So that summary should be pretty easily able to be extracted from what we have in this document. But then too, those recommendations and observations, I think the whole committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but it seems as though we all felt strongly, either all of us or some of us, about things that we'd observed that maybe were overlooked or that should be at least in consideration moving forward. And that just came as a matter of exploring the record to this extent. So it sounds like that's something that can be also part of this as well. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think. Obviously, if we're thinking about extracting that language and moving it to some place of higher importance within the overall document, I think it'll be important for each of us to go back and read carefully to make sure that, because we spent hours and hours and hours working on this and wordsmithing as we were going. So it could be that there's things there that need to be reaffirmed, confirmed, or revised, depending on, how the language actually ended up. We did have some really long meetings.
That's what I heard.
Just a couple. Weekend
Yeah.
warriors in a different way.
Yeah.
So
No,
I did have a couple of questions about the overall approach.
Yeah. Fire.
So I don't know if you were joking or not, but the introduction section to our land use stuff, we're not writing a new one, right? We're hopefully it's the one that we're going to be working on Wednesday.
I was attempting to be funny again.
Okay, great. I just
And-
wanted to confirm.
Yeah, because
wanted to
I
confirm.
can't imagine doing another one.
Yeah. And then I wondered about how these so this is sort of an overview within each of the subcommittee sections, and I'm wondering how key findings and recommendations, for example, from the land use subcommittee, how are they, or are they going to be rolled up somehow into the overall executive summary? What's the relationship between this stuff down here and what gets fed up into, I'm guessing, will be a 15 or 20 page executive summary?
Right. So again, work in progress. Subcommittee E are my editors for the executive summary, which I'm going to draft but not finish, just something to push against. Is so let's just use this this scale as a kind of, this is what I'm thinking. 150-page subcommittee report, 15-page body of the full work group report that's doing what we've just talked about for the past 15 minutes, and times 5 subcommittees, so that's like 25, and then like a 5-page executive summary at the beginning of the overall work group report. So I'm envisioning things, thinking out loud only for yours. The subcommittee looked at each of the land use issues and provided an opinion or thoughts and an analysis of their current status surrounding the compliance issue. Then I'd borrow a paragraph or two from the introductory thing that we're working on, and then say, for the analysis of each one, they are on pages X through Y of the report with a hyperlink. As to recommendations the subcommittee is making, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's say there was 5 pages of recommendations. try to get them down to, the, what would we call almost like the title, number one, get more Cheetos into the landfill. And then a paragraph, it would be just number one, get more Cheetos in landfill. Number two, remove methane. It would be at that level. So that if the person only read the executive summary, they will have a cheat sheet as to all the topics we covered, and with an emphasis on the recommendations, and then they can dive in to the body of the report and then dive further to your subcommittee report for the level of detail they want to go down to.
Okay, well, obviously exactly how it comes out will be important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And until I see all this, and the other piece that we haven't gotten to, mind you, just so you think we're having fun yet, is I've got to get each subcommittee's key findings and key recommendations, and then at a minimum I got to shot those to the other subcommittees to look at it and say, wait a minute, subcommittee A said the sky is falling and subcommittee C said no, the earth is rising. We got to reconcile these two key findings.
So yeah, and just to clarify, so what I thought I heard Inga say is that Inga is charged with taking the first shot at devising key findings and recommendations.
Unless you guys want to. I mean, we're trying to take the burden off you, given all the other work. If you would prefer to do this, I know that Inga will only cry for about 3 seconds. I do it. It wasn't to take it away from you. It was to help you. But if you want to do it yourself, Godspeed. But you got to get me something by noon on Monday.
Yeah, and it's not that I want to do it, but what I worry a little bit about is those key findings and recommendations, even though they're draft and work in progress and all that sort of stuff, getting before the full work group, before the subcommittee really has an opportunity to provide input into that, into the effort that Inga puts together. And the other thing I think about is, and I know it's where we are, but Ed was a major driving force in this whole process on the land use review, and he won't be back until the end of January. Yep. And so that just is unfortunate, but I think it's also challenging because he was coming to the table with some very interesting perspectives that I hope we can capture in key findings and recommendations.
Please try to think of this as literally a first rough draft, a first detail. I already sent out a rough draft, it's more of a skeleton of what the document was. This would be the first shot at putting something together. And I will be all over anyone that says, well, you said it in your first draft. Yeah, we said it because we had to get it out for something to start seeing. Nothing's final into the March, whatever the hell it is, meeting.
Okay.
Nothing is final.
Okay.
Can you remind me again, Mark, do you recall when he comes back in January? I knew it was towards the end. Is it all the way at the end?
Yeah, I think it's January 30th.
It is.
Or maybe the 29th.
Okay.
Because I know he had an exchange with Inga about rescheduling a meeting by a day.
That's right.
So he could attend.
Yep,
and I think he gets maybe back on the 29th and wanted to move a meeting to the 30th or something that we had proposed to be on the 28th or 29th, something like that.
31st is when we have number 10 would be the meeting. And I think he gets back Monday evening.
Is that the 30th?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we had originally, because we've been doing these on Mondays, maybe we had originally proposed to do it on the 30th, and he asked to move it one day.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Totally understandable.
Yeah. I'm going to call him in Antarctica as soon as we get off this call and tell him to get his butt back here.
You know, I think he should give us each Patagonia jackets. He could
Something,
probably
right?
we should send our size, color, and model preferences
Right.
to him.
Yeah.
If you're going to call him, Mark, give him a list.
I will. Yeah.
All right,
That's-
so I hear next steps, but I also hear them going two different directions. Inga is going to tackle them, or we're going to tackle them. Mark, I'm going to ask. So I think we can go over the MOU in detail. We've talked about it a little bit, but I think that we can go through and actually, highlight or high point or bullet point, whatever comments or considerations and perspectives that we want to share about that document. As far as the building of the summary of our 154 pages, last I looked, but I don't know where it's changed since then. Are
Yeah,
you
I think-
suggesting that we do that work? That's my question.
Well, what I think, I'm happy for Inga to take a first shot at it, but what I think I'm gonna do, or concurrently, is once Inga sends out her reformatted draft, we don't yet have Jeff's input, so we don't really know what Jeff's gonna be saying. But
Right.
I will want to refresh my memory and go through that and attempt on my own to create a list of what I think are key findings and key recommendations, so that I can be prepared to engage constructively with whatever Inga puts together to say, okay, we should talk about, this seems like this was a key finding that we need to include, and it's not on Inga's list. And she hasn't had the 40 hours of in-depth discussion.
Oh, that was just that one weekend. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Okay, I think
That's-
that I think there's a lot of redundancy. If you recall, we got through that period where a lot of the conditions were repetitive, and that
Yeah.
at least will abbreviate the amount of work in this summary process. But I think I'm good with what you're saying, meaning you can do what you want. Certainly, it's none of my business, but it sounds like a good plan going forward.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think that's how I'm going to handle it, because I will want to refresh my memory and engage in a way that can be, here's some things I think we need to consider as key findings and recommendations.
Inga, what would be a realistic ETA to get it to Catherine and Mark?
The summary or the existing document?
Well, the existing document, hopefully that can be
I
this
can just,
evening.
yeah, I can just send
yeah.
that. So the
But I-
summary,
yeah,
Key findings and recommendations.
right.
Wednesday, if you guys want to look, when are you gonna get together? Well, you're gonna have to get together before Wednesday to talk about the MOU.
Yeah, but that's okay. We can follow
I
up,
don't-
and we can
don't-
have two separate discussions. We
Yep.
can talk about the MOU, and then if you could get us your first draft at key findings and recommendations by Wednesday, that would be great. I think that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I can do that. And then I am off on Friday. So you'll have to add your input and then send it directly back to Sam
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that he can get it. Because then Monday is our holiday, so I won't be in that day either.
When are you thinking of sending it out to the work group, Sam, on Monday?
Well, given as these schedules float, I'm meeting with each of the subcommittees this week. It sounds like it's going to be on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
What was it? The 16th is Tuesday, or
16th is
the
Monday.
16th.
Yeah.
so then the 17th. Then it would be after everyone gets their stuff, no later than the 17th,
And then the work group
Yeah.
meeting is on Wednesday?
19th. Yeah,
Oh, on
Thursday the 19th. So it's not
Okay.
it's just the hand we're dealt here.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know Jeff will probably want to be involved in this as well. So I don't know if you want to coordinate with him on your end of it after I get mine done and I send it out. Because Sam's going to need one combined document.
Sure. Yeah. Well, when you
So-
send out your key recommendation, your key findings and recommendations, I assume you'll send it to Jeff at the same time.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm just saying, if he makes his comments and then you make your comments, I don't know. Does it matter, Sam? Do you want them combined or you want one from him and one from Catherine and Mark?
Semper Gumby, always be flexible like Gumby. We'll see well, it would be great to have one version, but I don't think it's going to happen because you're not even going to get his comments on the 154 pages and have time to review all of those between now and that Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And,
this
and
this
it would,
is definitely a rough draft.
yeah. And it would seem that Jeff and Catherine and I would have to talk in order to have combined comments.
Mhm.
It wouldn't be just sending, random comments back and forth to each other, that we would have to schedule a meeting and all that stuff. So that's not likely to happen before Tuesday.
Yeah, and if I
would be my
can't
guess.
if I want to get it out to you on Wednesday, then I probably will not be able to add in key findings from Jeff's comments.
No, you're not gonna, they won't be in. So it'll have to be just what you have so far. And then thinking out loud, what do you think of this? Come Tuesday at noon, when I'm starting to the final mushing all these various subcommittee reports together. Let's assume you get Condit's things on Thursday. It's going to take you several days, and you're not meeting again to review them. They're not meeting again to Wednesday, which is, wait for it, after Tuesday at noon. I think I might just, for the actual subcommittee report, that which will be posted to the website and linked will be his track changes. Your document with his track changes to say this is the current state of the document as of Tuesday at noon, and it's not done. And people, the whole work group should have the benefit of seeing, where things are at. And because you're not going to be able to reconcile them before then.
That makes sense. I don't see how we would, and whatever presentation was made at the larger work group meeting on Thursday would reflect that.
Yeah.
That, it's still a work in progress. We have these, sounds good. That makes sense.
Well, and next Wednesday, I put down 2 hours for the meeting. I start at 3, just in case we needed extra time to work out what the presentation will be for the next day. And because there'll be the whole questions about what the key recommendations are.
Yeah.
And
Well, again, it seems to me like that's going to be so rough at that point. Maybe not, maybe everything will line up, but I think there's a good chance that it'll be very rough by Wednesday. So whether the presentation on Thursday even includes a discussion of key findings and recommendations could be, we're way too early in this process, unless there were a couple that we could all agree to say, yeah, here's some, and we got this many more to work our way through.
Well, again, I'm not so much concerned about what you ultimately get consensus on. I'm more concerned that next work group meeting be to show them what you're not getting consensus on and get some feedback from the rest of the members on. And so that's why I use as my example, like say you can't get the yes on the introductory language, the then current version of that one paragraph that has that's in dispute, we'd put the then existing track change version up and ask for input from people. And same with the MOU. But going over the list of all the things that you do agree on as for our recommendations, that can wait. if you're going to get there, that's fine.
Well, that sounds like an interesting approach to try to ask for input from the entire work group on some key language that they really haven't yet had an opportunity to understand the context and discussions, but so be it.
Yeah, well, at a minimum, I just want him to know there's this issue. You know,
Uh-huh.
and maybe we don't go to the next stage and say, therefore, I'm putting this up. I probably would never go to the next step and put it on the screen and say, all right, let's take edits in real time, because I would
Well, that's
get
what it sounded
killed.
like.
I'm sorry, I should have been clear. Yeah, it would just be any thoughts. Well, have you thought about this or you thought about that? Not a actual writing it, rewriting it to get to yes.
Uh-huh.
So I overstated it. I apologize.
That's no worries.
So do we have anything else? Go ahead.
So we
Mark.
will expect to hear, or you'll forward to us Ginny's redraft of the introductory statement. That'll come this evening sometime. Inga, you'll send out the reformatted version of what Catherine and Ed and I put together, so we can look at that.
Mhm.
Catherine and I will need to huddle up and talk through the 2002 MOU. And I guess Catherine and I will be thinking about key findings and recommendations to just so we could start putting everything into context and be able to look at Inga's draft when it comes out on Wednesday or so.
Yep.
And the
Anything
last
else on our
thing,
list?
yeah, the last thing is an update from DEQ on the permits. I asked Audrey O'Brien where they were, and she says she is working on the records request next week, which I'm guessing is this week, because this came in Friday. So she'll be working on it this week to begin sorting through the spreadsheet that Ed provided, and she's going to have another update midweek this week.
Good.
And that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. And Mark, if you don't mind, after we hang up, because Inga owns this call, and it's been recorded, could you call me? Because I want to yell at you about something else. I've run out of I haven't had enough yelling today. And I
Okay.
realized that you're the one I wanted to yell at.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Tag your Ed, Mark.
yeah, that sounds good. Oh, yeah, no, it doesn't really sound good, but I'll be happy to do it.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you all very much.
All right,
Thanks,
I'll give you a
everybody.
call in a few
Bye.
minutes. All right, see ya.
Bye-bye.